Have you ever heard the story about Abraham and his son Isaac? If not, this is a good time to read Genesis 22. Have you ever wondered how crazy it was for God to ask, no, tell Abraham to kill his only son? I mean, it sounds downright horrible. What kind of God would ask anyone to do such a thing? Well, it's not exactly what it seems to be. Let's take a closer look. Okay, Genesis 22 starts off with, God tested Abraham and tells him to take his only son, whom he loves dearly, and to sacrifice him. So the next morning, Abraham saddles up his donkey and son and heads over to where God tells him to go. When he sees the place in the distance, he tells his servants to wait. Him and Isaac go there, and just when he's about to bring the knife down and sacrifice Isaac, God tells him to stop. Phew, that was close. Okay, that's cool. Thanks, God. But why in the world would you even ask this of Abraham to begin with? Well, to understand this, let's take a look at a few things. Point number 1. First of all, it's important to note that God did not tell Abraham to murder or kill his son. He asked him to sacrifice his son. Okay, well, why ask him to sacrifice his only son? Well, in the ancient Near Eastern cultures, there were many groups of people, and what they would do is sacrifice their children. Even as young as newborn children, they would sacrifice them to these made-up gods. So in essence, God was saying, oh yeah? See all those people with their strong faith in killing their kids to made-up gods? I wonder if you would do the same, especially to the only real living God. Point number 2. Remember just a few chapters back? What did God promise Abraham? He said, from his very own body, a blessed nation would come that would outnumber even all the stars. Genesis 12 and 15. But who specifically did he say that this promise would start with? That's right, Isaac. Genesis 21. So, imagine this. One day, God says, hey Abraham, through you and your son Isaac, I will bless the whole world from here until the end of the age. And then, the very next day, he says, hey Abraham, sacrifice Isaac at the altar now. Wait, what? Now, there's a reason for this. We'll get to that. But imagine Abraham's face. Do you think he was confused? Shocked? Probably not. Because, remember, why was he chosen to begin with? Because when God made the promise that a nation would come from him, Abraham had immense faith that God would keep his promise. And so God said Abraham would be made righteous, or in proper standing with God, simply because of his belief in this promise, not because of any work or sacrifice to God. You see, God was saying, really Abraham, you believe me, and you don't even have a son yet. Man, that's awesome. Adam and Eve didn't believe me, and they had that tree right in front of their eyes, and still chose not to believe me. Back to Abraham. So, after God said, sacrifice Isaac, Abraham probably said, okay, whatever, God. I'm not going to stop believing your promise to me. So I'll sacrifice Isaac, and then you can deal with raising him from the dead. I'm not sure how you'll do it, or care how you do it, but I believe you will, and that's your issue. That's why the Apostle Paul said Abraham believed God would raise Isaac from the dead. Check out Hebrews chapter 11. And finally, point number 3. Have you ever seen a painting or drawing of Abraham going to sacrifice Isaac? People often wondered how old Isaac was. Many drawings have this little toddler, Isaac, carrying some branches and twigs alongside his dad. But consider this. Back then, a burnt sacrifice was offered by first killing the animal in a humane way, which is why Abraham had the knife. This method was called shishita. Then, they would burn the animal for several hours over a hot fire. A few twigs couldn't do this. They would have to be logs, heavy logs. Now Abraham was already 100 years old, so he couldn't possibly carry them. So the Bible says Isaac carried them. Genesis chapter 22, verse 6. So Isaac probably was an adult, but certainly not a toddler. Isn't that interesting? Now, picture this. Isaac, obedient to his father, carrying the wood to his own sacrifice. Who does that remind you of? That's right, Jesus. Obedient to his father, carrying the wooden cross to his own sacrifice. Isn't that amazing? And what's even more interesting, how long was their sacrificial journey? It took Abraham and Isaac 3 days to get to the place of sacrifice. And how long after Jesus died did he rise from the dead? That's right, 3 days. And it makes you wonder where he went for those 3 days, doesn't it? And where were they going for this sacrifice? A place called Moriah, the same place where God told King David where the temple would be. The same place where David brought the Ark of the Covenant. The same place where King Solomon, David's son, built the temple. Oh, and one more thing. Where was Jesus crucified? That's right, you guessed it, near Mount Moriah. Isn't that amazing? And one final point. Why does God even use this method of foreshadowing Jesus' life? Well, the answer might surprise you and has strong parallels to rabbinical allusions. But I'll discuss that in another video, or my husband will. If you like this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share.